Have you ever felt?
Are you listening?
With veganism on the rise, Generation Vegan interviews the up-and-coming hottest vegans, and in this podcast, we teach you the practical side of having a plant-based diet. Today, I have the honor of talking to Nimai Delgado. His Instagram account influences over 19,000 people, and he's a super fit vegan who seems to thrive when it comes to living life to the fullest. So let's jump on in. Welcome back, everyone, to Generation Vegan. I am excited and honored to be interviewing, I forgot to ask how to pronounce your name, Nimai. Okay, I can remember. So I watched a lot of your YouTube videos where you were like skating, and you look so much younger, but I'm assuming it was only a few years ago.
Yeah, actually, so I started skating whenever I was maybe 11, and I took it up really quickly, and I got really good at it, and just kind of like dedicated my entire childhood to skating. And I ended up getting sponsorships. I traveled the country. Did like a ton of competitions. I ended up getting like skate sponsors, wheel sponsors, all kind of different things. And I think right around like high school, college, around then, I stopped skating as much and just started focusing more on like socializing with friends and actually having a life outside of skating. Because skating, you get some characters, but I wouldn't trade my childhood for a minute. You know, I grew up in South Mississippi, and there, even just growing up in South Mississippi, there's a lot of characters that you meet. So especially in like the skating community, I remember at one point I was like touring the South with like Ryan Sheckler and this whole like ESPN crew, and just doing these demos, these skate demos in different malls and different cities all across the South. It was really cool. But I haven't skated in like a couple of years, and I really miss it.
I saw the one, there was like a 15-second one where you fell over this rail. I mean, I'm sure you've fallen a lot of times, but it just looked, it was called the taco.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking. I think I was like 13 in that video, 13, 14.
I was like,
There's a lot of videos floating around that I don't even know are out there, and like people will tag me in them occasionally. And I'll be like, holy crap, I remember this day exactly, and I haven't seen this in so long. So if there's any video editors out there watching, hit me up, because I need a video editor.
But could you give people examples of the exact type of haters you get? And
oh man, I get all kinds of haters. Let's see, probably the most typical hater is the steroid comment, because anytime anybody sees like a muscular guy, regardless of whether they know them or not, it's like boom, like they give them a stamp on the forehead and they're like, steroids, like just completely discrediting all the work that you've put in and all the like sacrifice and everything. And it really doesn't bother me, because I've always been one to shrug off people's ignorant comments and different things like that. But what bothers me is that the message that I'm trying to portray is that you can do things naturally, and you can do things like obviously with a plant-based diet, and you don't need all this extra supplementation. And don't get me wrong, I use supplements, but you don't have to do steroids to get to where you want to be or to look the way you want to look. And you can call me out all day and say that I do steroids, and you'll never be able to prove whether I do or not, because you have no idea who I am. And I'm okay with that. I can take that. But what I'm not okay with is that the younger generation, or the kids that look up to me, or the kids that are like asking me questions, they read the comments on the pictures and they're like, oh, these people are accusing you of steroids. Like, maybe the only way I can get to that point is if I take steroids. So that's the part that really gets to me, because that's the message that I'm trying to get away from is that connotation that you have to eat meat to get big. You have to eat meat to be a man. You have to do steroids to get strong. It's completely false. And essentially that's what I'm trying to get out there. So I don't know, that's just kind of the way I deal with it. I just try to just eliminate the comments and just keep on moving on, just keep on pushing positivity in the face of negativity, you know, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you're fighting so many stereotypes, and I completely that. Like, I'm a mixed girl in a small town. I have pit bulls. Like, I'm a vegan. I'm a bodybuilder. Like, all this stuff. Well, I'm not a bodybuilder right now.
Yeah.
In my head, I am.
Yeah.
So I get it. It's going to be like a long journey, but I think it's so worth it, because all the people that fight the stereotypes that they break through, they are successful, and they inspire so many people, and it's really awesome.
Exactly. I was just writing up a post about not being afraid to be different, but being afraid to be like everybody else. And I know a lot of people that always try to conform who they are just to satisfy other people. And I was actually one of those people. I mean, growing up, like I said, I grew up in South Mississippi. I don't know if you've ever been to Mississippi, but it's not the most open-minded place in the world. And I grew up in a tiny little community in the middle of nowhere. And there's actually a Hindu community. So all right, let me backtrack a little bit. So give you a little bit more information about myself, or background information. So my parents are Argentinian. They were both born and raised in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and they met, they fell in love, they got married, and they actually both converted to Hinduism. So me, my brother, and my sister were all raised Hindu. And I was born in South Mississippi in like a really small little Hindu community in the middle of nowhere. That's kind of, it was like self-sufficient. We had our own gardens, we had our own temple, we had our own cows that they got milk and cheese and made cheese and everything. It was really cool. But the surrounding area was like completely like just really evangelistical minded people, and if it's either your way or their way or no way, pretty much, and they'll condemn you at every chance they get. And so, like I said, I grew up in that kind of environment. So I was the white, Spanish-speaking, weird name, vegetarian, surrounded by traditional Southern, kids and families. So growing up was always a little different too. So I was actually raised vegetarian from birth. So me, my brother and sister, we've never like tried meat or wanted to try meat. It's just one of those, it's a Hindu value that you promote nonviolence, you live a life of nonviolence. So growing up and going to like birthday parties and like all the kids are eating barbecue and all this stuff, and I'm over here eating like Dorito sandwiches, just like like just trying to survive. And like I'm used to it. Like I'm like, no, I'm good with my Dorito sandwich. You're good job on your burger. I don't really care. Like, this is bomb. Like you're missing out. So,
oh gosh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So I know all about being
go ahead.
Fighting stereotypes. So I know all about fighting stereotypes. That's why I just kind of used to shrugging it off,
Man, you fight more stereotypes than I could ever even imagine.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit how you why you didn't believe, what held you from being vegan, I guess, your whole life? Like, what was your thought process? And then what finally was the kicker of you being like, you know what, no more dairy?
You know what? So I started being vegan about a year ago, a little over a year ago. Like I said, I was vegetarian my whole life, and I didn't really have a reason to go vegan, but I just saw it as being like the next step, I guess, because I have like a certain set of values and beliefs that if you want me to go into them, I will. Oh, you want me to go into? Okay. I think you kind of have to understand where I'm coming from just to understand why I look at things a certain way. And one of your questions that you sent me was, am I vegan for my health, for the environment, or for the animals?
Right.
So I think religion aside, because you can never get anybody to agree on any kind of religion in the world. I mean, that's why we have wars. That's why we have mass terrorist attacks and all these other things is strictly based off religion. And I don't like getting into religion or politics with anybody, because it's a war you're never going to win, right? So I think there are certain things that we can all agree on. And I think that one of those things is that, humans and animals, we both exhibit signs of life. We both show like happiness. We both show emotion. We show pain. We show fear. We show love in the presence of like offspring. But the key difference and the key distinction between humans and animals is that humans have like a higher sense of consciousness. We're more aware of what we're doing and our actions that we take. When you look at animals, they're more instinctively driven. So they don't have that decision between good or bad. So when you look at it in that aspect, it almost makes humans responsible or accountable for every action that they decide to do. And if you take like a snapshot or like an accumulation of all those actions throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the year, and eventually throughout your entire lifetime, there's eventually going to be a balance of good actions or bad actions, whether they're intentional or unintentional. And you could kind of look at this as karma. So karma, for those of you that don't know, is the universal law of cause and effect, or action and reaction. So, or what goes around comes around kind of thing. So by choosing not to participate in certain acts of violence, they suffering, they promote exploitation, they promote slaughtering or death, you kind of actually are liberating yourself from those kind of acts happening to you in your life. So that's one of the reasons why I decided to just kind of give everything else up and just live a plant-based lifestyle, because the more you disassociate yourself from those energies and those actions, the less likely you are to receive those later on in life. And if you want to look at it from more of like a scientific point of view, let's say like a chemical point of view, okay, so our bodies are incredible machines. Like they're the most amazing machines that have ever been designed. So everything that we consume and we drink and we eat eventually becomes a part of us. So we consume food, we break it down into its simplest molecules, and then we restructure the molecules to form proteins that create your skeleton, your skin, your organs, your nerves, and everything else. So if you look at it from that perspective, animals at the time of, or like say like the meat on your plate becomes a part of you. And if you think about the meat and how it got there, at the time of death, an animal experienced certain things. Now, say in a slaughterhouse, a cow is going to get slaughtered. It experiences certain emotions. It's experiencing fear. It's experiencing terror, aggression, adrenaline, and all of these things from a scientific point of view are chemicals that are released by your brain. So these chemicals and these things, they form adrenaline, and they are essentially imprinted on the animal's meat and flesh whenever it's killed. So whenever it ends up on your plate and you consume it, you not only consume those chemicals and like that are imprinted on the meat, you end up consuming like the energy that's associated with all of those things too. So I don't know, if you just disassociate yourself even further from eating meat, then you actually disassociate yourself from all of that negative energy that comes along with the act of killing, the act of suffering, and the act of like exploitation. So in turn, you could live a more peaceful life. You could live a more compassionate life and just have more mental clarity. And yeah, sorry, I just rambled for about 20 minutes, but I don't know if that answers the question or not, but
this is a show. This is what we do. So it's fine.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I just realized I had been talking for the past like 5 minutes and not even allowing you to speak. Sorry.
No, I love it. I totally agree. And that's why I'm doing this podcast, because when I tell people that, they're like, oh, you're just an old soul hippie, this is natural for you. You're like the vegan hippie child. You like traveled the United States in a van, like that's you. And I'm like, that's why I have you on here, because you're normal looking. And I use the quotes, like what's normal, but you could be not normal in your mind. You know what I mean? But I think people look at you and they think normal. And then they're like, okay, well, he's like this. Maybe I can be like this too.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. And I think that's a great point, that, you don't have to be even look like a certain way to think a certain way, and that same concept could be spread out over, different cultures and different races, or everybody can just, if they adopt a certain way of thinking, then we can all, live a certain lifestyle and just contribute to the overall cause. So I think that's what you're trying to do. That's what I'm trying to do. And
right. Well, if someone like contacts you and they're very interested in this plant-based lifestyle, like what information do you send to them to break that mental blockade of like, that's a cow and this is a steak and it's the same thing? Like, how do you break that?
Oh man, I've had that conversation plenty of times. It's really difficult actually to change somebody's perspective.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably one of the most difficult things you can ever do in a lifetime, is change somebody's point of view to your own point of view, or just even allow them to see where you're coming from. And Usually I don't necessarily point them to a place where it's like a database of information regarding veganism or plant-based diets. I usually I've tried the age-old argument of like, there's no difference between your dog and a cow. And people are like, oh, well, dogs don't taste good, or that's why we don't eat them. And I'm like, but there's essentially no difference. I don't know how else you want me to explain it, because like that's the way I've always been brought up to think, is that an animal is an animal regardless of what type of animal it is. You know what I mean? Like,
well,
yeah, I try to say. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say that for me, even before I was a vegan, people would say that to me, and it just didn't hit me. And I love animals. I'd never kill ants, bugs. I camp a lot, and unless they bite me, then I don't kill them, like wasp, anything. And even then, I was still eating chicken and meat. So, like, it's hard. How do you break that? So
yeah, like I said, I mean, that's probably that's the biggest struggle of being a plant-based advocate is getting people to see your point of view. And I think unless they're really truly interested, then it's very difficult to change somebody's point of view, because if they don't want to hear what you have to say, it doesn't matter what kind of facts or what kind of information you're throwing at them, and they're just like deflecting it, and they're like, pew, pew. Like, I don't really care what you have to say right now. Like, I'm still going to go, like, we're going to have a good conversation, and then I'm going to go have my steak or have a piece of chicken, you know what I mean? And I'm going to love it. So it really is dependent on the person and what kind of knowledge they're seeking. You know what I mean? Like, I'll have conversations with people, and you can tell when somebody's genuinely interested in what you have to say, right, and when somebody's just kind of bullshitting you. You know what I mean? So it really depends on the vibe that I'm getting from somebody with how much information I give back to them. You know?
Right. What do you think is that time what do you think pushes people in that direction? For me, it was, I got rheumatoid arthritis, couldn't walk for 4 months right after my first bodybuilding show. And they put me on chemotherapy, and then they were like, oh, you're going to be on this for the rest of your life. And I was like, hell no, I'm not. So I went to research, and it was like dairy. So then I gave up dairy, and I was like, well, if dairy improved my life so much, I might as well try meat. And that's how I got to veganism. But I know there are other people that aren't like that. What do you think it is that takes people to get to that point?
Well, actually, a lot of times I found that is the breaking point, is whenever they're like on their deathbed, or if somebody's got a gun to their head, or the doctor's telling them essentially that their health is in risk, and the only way to avoid it is to adopt this plant-based lifestyle. And to me, that alone is like enough evidence to prove to people that plant-based diets is like the healthiest thing that you could ever do. Because if it cures cancer, if the doctor's sitting here telling you that it cures cancer, but the part that blows my mind is that the doctor himself isn't vegetarian, or like a lot of the times the guy that's giving you the advice he doesn't believe the same thing that he's preaching to you. But I feel like some people are just a little bit more awoken when it comes to certain issues, and they can see things from a different viewpoint. And I think those are the types of people that actually end up making a conscious change, and a change in the way they think. Because a lot of times people are hardwired, man. If you grow up and you are programmed to think a certain way, to go back to your brain and like reprogram everything, then it's incredibly difficult. So, like I said, it's just all dependent on the person in general.
So who cooks more, you or your girlfriend? And what is her name? I'd like to.
Me, for sure. I cook more. Her name's Brittany Payne, and yeah, Brittany Payne. She's a vegetarian, and she wasn't a vegetarian whenever we met. And I know one of your questions was whether or not I choose to date vegans or vegetarians, or what my viewpoint is, what my preference is. And honestly, I've never really had a preference on who I dated when it comes to diet, but somehow, one way or another, sooner or later, it seems like all the girls that I've dated did convert to a vegetarian or to a plant-based diet. And I've never been the one to like preach to somebody like, oh, you need to, like, if they're eating meat in front of me, I'm like giving them a look. I'm not like that at all. Like, I could care less, unless you want to know about it. But it seems like all my girlfriends in the past have all converted, and it took her maybe, I don't know, 6 months, 8 months before she finally just ended up giving up meat altogether and just becoming a vegetarian. So like I'm extremely happy because I know she's healthier, and she talks about it all the time, how healthy she feels, and now she's even like an advocate for it. And I wish she could be here right now because she's a trip. She's really funny.
I didn't know if you wanted her to have her own episode or what, but I guess she's not vegan.
Oh, I would love for her to have her own episode. She's way more entertaining than I am, and way more theatrical. She actually does beauty pageants. So right now she's currently Miss Earth USA 2015.
That's so awesome.
So she won the whole thing. So her whole platform, because you have to have, like, for those of you that don't know about Miss Earth, I know I'm like a pageant guru now because I've been dating her for 2 years. I know all about each pageant system and who runs what and what they look for and all this stuff. It's funny. But as Miss Earth, it's like a beauty pageant with an environmental platform. So her whole platform is self-sustaining gardens and planting your own garden to reduce your carbon footprint and to reduce the environmental effects of like, you know, massive harvesting and like all these other things. So she's actually a really good advocate for it. Like even like unintentionally, like she just kind of adopted this way of thinking, you know?
Right.
So I would love for you to interview her. You would really like her. I guarantee it. It's really funny though, because there's always like a line between vegan and vegetarian that I feel is like almost like a war. Yeah. It's like almost like pointing fingers like, oh, I'm more vegan than you, or you know what I mean? Or like, oh, you're a terrible person. Like you don't eat meat, but you eat dairy and shit. So like you know what I mean? It's like judgmental. And I can't stand it because like I feel like vegans and vegetarians are totally on the same side, and like even just giving up like meat in general, and like you still whatever. There's different ways you could still eat cheese and dairy and all this stuff, and like there's different ways to look at it. But that's such a big step compared to like maintaining like an omnivorous diet that I can't stand when people are like,
Yeah.
oh, he like you do this or they do that. You know what I mean? Just like eating like one thing. I don't know. That's just a pet peeve of mine that I wish everybody would just kind of unite and be like, look, it's plant-based. We're all part of the same cause. We're promoting the exact same thing. We're all, you know, trying to stand up for animals and their rights and stand up for the environment and stand up for your own health and the next generation that's coming. Because like at the end of the day, these big companies, the only thing they're worried about is bottom dollar, and they'll do anything and everything just to get the bottom dollar, you know, just to get more money and squeeze more money out of people. And if that means by pumping these animals full of hormones to make them more plump and more juicy, then they're going to do it, you know?
Well, I guess my only issue with it, and I'm not an ethical vegan at all, and I always say on all my things, I'm like, if you're an ethical vegan, get out of here, because you're probably going to get pissed off at me, because I do think that dairy contributes to the same industry like that meat does. So it kind of is like, what's the point? I understand if you eat meat, if you don't eat meat, you're not contributing to it as much, but it's still there. And I don't even care. I care, but I don't care. You know what I mean? I just can't eat dairy because of my autoimmune disease. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, if I could walk the next day when I eat dairy, I still might eat dairy. I know that sounds super messed up, but it's such a chemically dependent, like it's so good. People love it. That's why they eat it, right? And I think from the whole standpoint of I'm vegan, so I'm better, like you're vegetarian, so you suck type of point. It's, I get it. Like they're positive too. Like vegetarians are positive too. But I also see what they're saying when, you know, you get the cheese, or what they say, if you eat cheese, you might as well get veal, because the cows the babies that they're ripping away for the milk and the cheese are put in the veal industry if they're a baby guy or whatever, and whatever. I don't know.
No, yeah, I totally get it. I totally agree with what you're saying. I totally get it.
There's more positive. It's just what you're saying. We're all being more positive. We just all need.
Yeah, exactly. There's gonna be shades of gray in every single argument that anybody tries to stand up for. You know what I mean? Like, what makes, you know, drinking milk any different than eating honey? It's like, you know, there's like there's balances, and some people are going to be okay with certain things and some people aren't, and some people just don't give a fuck. They're going to be like, I'm going to do whatever I want and suck it. You know what I mean? Like, so I totally get where you're coming from.
This is exactly why I wanted to have you on here. It's about that. It's about us being able to connect to the people that are not vegan at all. And I could never connect to ethical vegans before I was vegan. I was like,
oh, no, it's extremely hard.
Right. You're like,
I'll never forget. I'll never forget. One time I went to go visit a friend in San Diego, and I was driving back up. I was just by myself, and I was driving back up the PCH coming back to Bakersfield. And I stopped in Huntington Beach because it's like one of my favorite places in California. And there's like a really cool pier that goes out over the ocean. And there's always like some like street performers and like obviously like girls tanning and all this cool stuff. So I always like stopping there, right? And they actually had a display of like a vegan protest, like a PETA protest. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. So I'm like sitting on the pier itself, and I'm looking down to the boardwalk where everybody's like walking and riding their bikes, and they have a gigantic plate. And they have these two people, and they're in like nude colored bodysuits, and they're just laying there on this big plate, and they have like giant carrots next to them, and they have big peas and stuff. And it's like there's this lady running around with a big sign, and she's like, how does it look now? How does it look now? And it's like, so I'm getting like a kick out of this. And like I said, at the time I was vegetarian, and I'm just like watching it. And sure enough, one of the other people from this protest comes up to me, and they're like, hey, do you know anything about veganism and the environmental impact and how animals are mistreated and all these different things? And they're like, have you ever thought about converting or transitioning? And I was like, actually, I'm vegetarian. And she gave me a look, and she was like, do you eat milk, or do you drink milk, or do you eat cheese? And I was like, I kind of froze up. I was like, did I say vegetarian? I was like, I meant vegan. I was like, because I really just didn't want to hear her bullshit. And like, yeah, exactly. I was like, I'll just leave it at that. So she hands me a pamphlet, and of course, like the pamphlet's like, it's got all this information on it and stuff like that. But just like that look alone just completely shut me off to the whole idea of it. And that's the kind of stereotypes that give vegans and people that are promoting this stuff a terrible name, is because they're immediately perceived as judgmental and just condemning. Like, I felt like I was going to hell in a handbasket just because I answered that question incorrectly, you know?
You're like, oh, sorry, I'm just a vegetarian, whatever.
Yeah, I'll never forget that. That's a really good idea, that you do get people that are converting and slowly converting, because it's difficult for people that have eaten meat their entire life, or eaten dairy and everything else their entire life, to just cold turkey give up everything, because their body goes through like these withdrawals, and they don't necessarily know what to eat or where to get it, or they have this crazy connotation with protein. Everybody's got this obsession with protein that you need some kind of ungodly amount to survive, or to even like lift your finger up. You need 300 grams of protein, and you need 8 ounces of steak in front of you in every meal. And that's like the biggest question I get, is, I'm sure you get it too, just like every other vegan in the world is like, but where do you get your protein from? And then, like, they look at me and they're like, I have like some muscles, and they're like, how are you so big as a vegan and all this stuff? And I'm like, yeah, exactly. So that's even worse. It's like, oh, he's vegan. Oh, he must be on roids, you know? So it's like, I can never win, right? And so the first thing I ask people is like, okay, like, you're saying that I need X amount of protein to survive. How much protein do I need? And what makes, like, a lot of times it's ignorant comments. It's just people that aren't necessarily stupid. They just don't know, and they only know from word of mouth. They've never actually looked up how much protein the body needs to survive, how much it needs to gain muscle, how much it needs to lose fat. You know what I mean? And like, I'm an engineer. I graduated college with an mechanical engineering degree. So I like to know how things work. It's just kind of how I'm programmed. So whenever I started trying to build muscle and started working out, of course I wanted to know the fundamentals. I wanted to know how things worked. I wanted to know how my body processed food, and I want to know the quickest way to get to where I wanted. So if you do a little bit of research, you can find that your body doesn't need this ungodly amount of protein like people assume, and like advertisements are pushing everything protein, when it's like your body doesn't need that much. So whenever they ask me, they're like, how do you get your protein? I'm like, okay, well, how much protein do you need throughout the day? And people are just dumbfounded. They're like, well, you need a lot. And I'm like, okay, how much? Tell me a number of grams. How many do I need? And you just kind of kill their argument right there. You know what I mean? Not that we don't need protein, but we just need certain amounts, and you can easily attain those amounts with a plant-based diet, with a vegetarian diet. It's like it's not hard, but for some reason there's this, I don't know, there's this movement and this, like, I don't know if it's like propaganda or what, but it's just like protein is just like incredibly important when there's other sources of energy that you need to survive that are just as important, if not more important, than protein, you know?
Carbs.
Yeah, exactly. And those get a terrible rep too. So it's like they're saying you need a crap load of protein and like no carbs and then no fats. So that I can see why people think that, because industry's pushing just protein. So it's like the only thing you on your plate should be a piece of meat, according to like all these bro scientists. You know what I mean? That's what I call them. I call them bro scientists because they don't know jack shit about nutrition. All they know is what they read on message boards and magazines, who are owned by the supplement companies that are pushing these certain products just to get you to buy more. You know what I mean? So it's a cycle and a circle that people just don't understand because they just don't look it up themselves, you know?
Well, so right before I started my bodybuilding, my ex was like, are you sure you want to do that? You know, it's unhealthy, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, you're just a pansy because you're not going to do it, and I'm going to do it. And, you know, it's like super hard and blah, blah, blah. So I did it. And then I think what ended up happening, a combination of a few other things, but like, I think because I carb depleted so intensely, I was at 9% body fat, and it messed up my voice. Actually, it messed up my whole system. And I think that's why I got rheumatoid arthritis, is because it was in my genes already, like in my family. And then I just completely sabotaged my entire system by doing that. And I just was like, why? I'm a very smart person. I'm a very common sense person. So it's like, how was I so deceived to just like follow this random person's diet? And then I'm like, oh, I can't walk anymore. It's kind of important, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And that's something that a lot of people don't realize too, especially with like all these Instagram trainers and all these different people that are blindly handing out advice because they did a bodybuilding show and suddenly they're expert nutritionists when all they did was follow a skeleton diet that just said eat an insane amount of protein, don't eat any carbs, and just get enough fats to survive. You know what I mean? And then they go through what you're talking about, and they have these like carb hangovers where they feel so depleted that they can't even open their eyes. They're cranky. They're mean as hell. Because I've been around plenty of people that have been on prep or contest prep, and I'm like, dude, you need a nap. Like, what's wrong with you? You know what I mean? Like, they're incredibly cranky.
Right. That's like the funny thing. They're like, oh, it's like a joke. It's like when they talk about, you know, the 2 weeks before your show that you're just a zombie. So it's like funny, but it's like, no, that's your body breaking down.
Yeah, that's your body telling you that something's wrong. You know, I actually just did a show this past weekend, and up like my entire show prep, like I was getting like a significant amount of food, and like I knew a couple other guys that were prepping for the same show, and they're asking me, they're like, hey, what are your macros at? And I'm like telling them, and they're like, how are you eating that much? Like, and I don't do cardio at all. Like I do like maybe a couple minutes of cardio if I absolutely have to because I hate it. And they're like, how are you not doing cardio and how are you eating that much? And I'm like, it's a formula, man. Like did you look it up or are you just following what your coach tells you? Like,
right.
You know what I mean? Just, I don't know. I'm just the type of person who just find things out for myself and then apply them and see how they work for me. And just, I don't know, just science-based facts is where you want to get the majority of your information and not in the bathroom at the gym, you know?
Right, or in a, like magazine where it's like 6-minute abs in 6 days.
Yeah, exactly. This 10-day transformation, he took 30 pills and now he's a Olympian bodybuilder. I'm like, damn, it feels that easy. Like, shit, I can see why people do it, you know? But it couldn't be funny from the truth. It's just like you could take those same pictures in the same day and just Photoshop it and then just like stick your gut out and then suck your gut in. And I could do it too right now. It's just like, I could make millions of dollars and just promote some bullshit supplement. You know what I mean? Just a placebo, which there are companies out there doing it. And now finally people are starting to actually call them out on their bullshit and be like, this is your supplements are shit. They don't do anything. And you're saying that all these people are transforming their bodies, and it's a complete falsity. So,
well, I don't know if you have been following like the shreds kind of.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I didn't want to say any names, but yeah, exactly.
It's like I would be following people, and then it's like, oh, there's a shreds cup. Oh, there's the bikini. Oh, there's shreds now. Bye. Like I would just unfollow them.
Yeah, and I mean, like, there's nothing against like a company that's promoting their product. You know what I mean? But there's a difference between promoting your product and promoting your product in an untruthful way, and you're essentially scamming people, and you're essentially not telling the truth. You know what I mean? And who wants to buy something from a company that's trying to scam you? They just want their money, and then they'll throw you some placebo pills and just say good luck. You know what I mean? It's bullshit. And that's the kind of stuff that leads people to do more exotic supplements or more like hardcore supplements. And they're like, oh, I tried these 10 supplements and nothing worked for me. So I guess the only next logical step is to inject myself with some steroids that I got from Pepe around the corner. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, like, I don't get it. Like, I don't get it. I don't know. That's just me though. That's just me.
Well, I think so. I started selling Herbalife when I was like 20, right before I got, right before my first show. And I felt like a fraud because a lot of people, they do lose weight on it just because of calorie restriction alone. You're like going from eating full breakfasts to just drinking steak. So of course you're gonna freaking lose weight. And I already got my body like before that, so I felt bad promoting that like Herbalife got me here. So I stopped. Plus it was soy based, and I didn't know anything about soy at the time, and I just didn't feel comfortable like giving that information out, especially because I got my body screwed over by some random person that I just threw all my trust into. And so switching topics really quick, at my gym, I just got a personal training job again on like Monday. And I was telling him about what?
You're a personal trainer? Or a personal trainer, or you got a personal trainer?
So I was a
personal
trainer back in the day, right before I got my RA, and then I had 15 clients, and then I, couldn't walk and all that. And then I was out of the whole fitness industry because I was mad at it. I'm like, I can't walk, I can't run, like, what the So I just recently got back into it, and I told him I'm not giving any nutrition advice, like, because it just doesn't make sense. Like, how can you lie to everyone and say that in my little certificate that I'm trying to get my personal training degree, and it's like, oh, milk and cheese and eat meat, and it's like, no. Anyways, I showed them your picture. I was like, this is who I'm interviewing on my podcast, like on whatever today is, Tuesday. And the guy straight up was like, oh, he's vegan, then he must do steroids. And he got into the whole thing about how, like, how can we don't know what you really do, and like blah blah blah. And I'm like, yeah, well, I'm about to interview him, so we'll find out. Like,
yeah, exactly. And that's the exact argument. And like, even from like somebody else's perspective, I get it. Like, you could never prove whether I do or not. But I'm sitting I'm sitting here telling you that I don't, and my whole like message that I'm trying to put out is the complete opposite of what that stands for. You know what I mean? So, like I said, I'm used to it. And I've just learned to just kind of brush it aside and even laugh it off, because essentially like what this guy's saying is like, oh, look at his photo. Like, there's no way he's vegan and he has muscles like that. Like, he's doing steroids. Like, essentially what you're saying is that what I'm doing is impossible. Right. So that's a compliment to me. You know what I mean? It's a complete compliment.
You're like, yeah.
I'm like, thank you. Yeah, exactly. Like, you think I can do the impossible. So thank you, because I know the truth, and that's all that matters. And like I said, it's an argument that's never going to be won. So that's why I just stay out of it altogether. Like, people comment all the time, like, oh, roids, bullshit, roids. And I'm like, all right, dude. Like, I just don't even pay them any attention.
Well, we have about 10 minutes left, and I wanted to just kind of hit on some few questions that I ask everyone. Before we talk about those, Can you tell us what you think about soy? Like, do you feel like there's negative connotations to it, or, you know, how do you feel about it?
I fucking love soy. I'll throw it out there. I fucking love it. Like, I think that soy is like an absolute clutch of mine. Obviously, they have some different versions of soy, like the non-genetically modified soy. Like that's good soy. Don't get the shitty kind, but there's plenty of brands out there that only sell the healthier soy that aren't, you know, genetically modified. I don't even know what genetically modified means, but it sounds like it's pretty bad for you. So I just tend to stay away from it altogether. But I mean, what's not to love about soy? You know, it has all the essential amino acids that your body needs and your body can't generate themselves. There's this misconception that soy increases your estrogen or decreases your testosterone. And every single time somebody asks me where you get your protein from or where a majority of my protein source comes from, it's like, yeah, I take my plant shakes. I take a couple of those, and then majority of my protein comes from plants, like, you know, green leafy vegetables, spinach, asparagus, broccoli, and then I'll get like my soy protein. And people are like, oh, soy, like that's bad, right? Like I heard it's bad. And I'm like, again, like, where are you getting this information from? Because somebody told you it was bad, or did you actually look it up? It's like there's plenty of medical studies out there that show that soy have no side effects on, or no negative side effects on, like male testosterone production. And it does have like some chemical in it that mimics or resembles estrogen, but studies have shown that it doesn't have any kind of adverse effect on your testosterone production, your testosterone levels. And it actually shows that it promotes or it prevents your chances in male of like getting like prostate cancer and different types of cancers. So I don't see what the big issue is about soy. And like I said, I've eaten soy for I'm 26. So I've had to eat soy since I was like 4 years old, you know, and I've never had any kind of negative side effects from it.
Well, except for your bitch tits.
Except for the bitch tit, yeah, that's the number. Like I don't have bitch tits, so I'm living proof that it doesn't give you them.
So, do you feel like the world will go vegan majority? Like it'll be weird to eat meat in our lifetime, or what do you think about that?
I think it depends on types of different parts of the world. Like I think eventually that the world will get to a certain standard as far as education goes and as far as intelligence goes, and it all depends on that, because I feel there's going to be some kind of tipping point in the future, whether it be environmentally driven or biologically driven or something along the line is going to, like what's happening now, what happened to you, you know what I mean? It's like we're going to have to convert the way we do things, and we're going to have to convert what we eat and how our body processes it, because we can only do certain things for so long before Mother Nature says, like, no way, like you guys have tried to take it over. I'm going to show you who's boss, and you're going to play by my rules. So we're going to have to adapt. And there's certain things that need to happen before that ever takes place. And I think it's pretty far in the future. So maybe eventually everybody will start to develop this kind of philosophy and this way of thinking. But as far as the immediate future, no, I don't. But that's why it's so important for people like you and people like me and the hundreds and thousands of other people out there that have kind of been enlightened, and try to promote it more, you know, just shed more light on the subject and try to get more people involved. And just creating awareness creates, you know, countless more opportunities for different people to even just be exposed to it. And I think that's the most important part, is just creating more awareness.
Right. Well, I think one of the biggest things that I come across when I ask people that have money, more established people, I'm like, why aren't you vegan? You know, they always say, well, I eat out, or I don't cook. Like I always go out to eat. So what do you suggest for them in order to order well at restaurants, and like what type of restaurant should they go to and stuff?
You know, I feel like every restaurant can be vegan friendly.
Right.
You know, there's always a few items on the menu that can be made or rearranged to be vegan friendly. It's just a matter of knowing what they are. And like, luckily I've been raised vegetarian, so I've came across that my entire life. So like, I'm like that guy that will like call the waiter over and be like, is there this, or this with this meal? And can you not do this, and that? And they always give me the same kind of look, like I'm about to spit in your food, and I'm like, please don't spit in my food, along with the no meat. You know what I mean? Like, you know. So yeah, I feel like it's just a process of getting used to ordering those types of things. If you eat out, you know, there's like people don't understand that they can ask, and a lot of times the chef in the back of it, especially if it's a nice restaurant, like he's not going to want his customer to go out hungry. Like he's going to want to prepare you something great and leave you satisfied. You know what I mean? So it's just a matter of asking, honestly, and you'll be surprised at how many options there are out there. And even nowadays, there's even restaurants, full-blown restaurants dedicated to vegans. And it's the most incredible thing ever, because I can tell you this, there was not one in Mississippi. At least I didn't know of one in Mississippi. So whenever I moved to California, it was like heaven. I like go to LA and there's like, I type in vegan in Yelp and I'm like, oh my God, like, babe, we're going out. Like I'm going here, I'm going here, I'm going here, I'm going here. Like, I'm mapping my whole weekend around where I'm eating, you know?
That's exactly when I went out there for a conference or something. I was blown away. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm actually moving out to LA July 15th, because being out there and just being surrounded by so much like vegan stuff, and then also the opportunity. Yeah. I'm headed out there. Yeah, you got to hit me up, because I can show you some great places to eat. And like, it's exactly like you said, like eventually the small groups that we have will eventually become large crowds, and the large crowds will eventually become populations. You know what I mean? So it's like your vibe does attract your tribe. As much as you surround yourself with the positivity and like-minded people, it's like a fire that gets in you, and it makes you want to do better. It makes you want to do good. It makes you want to just promote more and contribute to the cause more. So like, I totally commend you for moving out there and you know, just like joining the movement that I call it crunchy granolas. I don't know if you ever heard that expression, but okay, yeah. So whenever me and my buddy would see like a typical hipster kind of vegan chick, we'd be like, oh, she's crunchy granola. You know what I mean? It's just like, so now you're part of the crunchy granola movement. That's amazing. So when you decide to have kids, whenever that is, are you going to try to raise them vegan? Or how are you going to handle it when they come home or they say they ate meat, or how's that going to go down? I think I'm going to raise them that way. And then eventually they're going to be old enough to make their own decisions, you know, just like I was. But I think that if you explain it to them in the correct manner, then it becomes a part of them. You know, if you reinforce every single day that we don't eat meat because we don't kill animals, because we like animals, because they have the right to live, like everything has the right to live, and who are we to dictate when something lives or dies? I think it creates a sense of compassion in a developing mind that is everlasting. You know what I mean? Because like I said, I've never eaten meat, and I never want to, and I never had any kind of desire to. And I think it's because my parents have always instilled that kind of belief in me. And like I said, it's like second nature. Like it doesn't matter what you're doing, or it's like a standard of mine. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter if I'm hammered drunk or something like that. Like I'll never eat a piece of meat. Like it's just one of those things that like you just, no matter what's going on, you won't break that standard. You know, like it just makes such sense. Like I know the way that I thought about diet, where it was like carb deplete, and now I'm like carb up. You know, I know that I've changed that way of thinking, and I don't know if I'll ever change it again. Maybe I'll go more fat, maybe I'll go more protein, whatever. But I don't think I'll ever change the fact that eating animal meat brings that energy into my body, where, like you said, it's karmic. And my anxiety, my depression, my insomnia is like all lowered a lot. And I do believe, like what we were talking about at the beginning, it's all about the energy that you're eating of these suppressed animals. Yeah, and not even to get like too spiritual with it, but it's like I've talked to plenty of people that have contacted me, and even saying like, or even like I've like helped transition into this kind of lifestyle. You know, after a few weeks, they come back to me and they tell me this. Almost it's trippy, because like almost all of them tell me the exact same thing. They're like, I feel lighter. You know what I mean? And I feel like
like a weight's been lifting off my shoulders. And a lot of people tend to think that it's like you're cleansing your body, but the way I like to think of it is that like you're actually cleansing your spirit and your soul, because you're not consuming that energy. And it's like, it's not a tangible thing that you can actually grab and measure, but you can feel a difference. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize, that is one of the added benefits of living this lifestyle, is that you're mentally clear and you're mentally more sound, and you just have a clearer mind. And when you have a clearer mind, like all aspects of life become better. And I mean, I don't see a reason, you can't tell me a good reason to not live this way. Like I challenge somebody to give me a good reason to not live this way.
I know, it's so crazy to just try to even explain to people. And like, I want to make a shirt that says, explaining vegan makes really smart people go dumb, like really quick, because I've had the most intelligent, woke people in my life sitting here telling me the most, plants have feelings too. I'm like, did that just come out of your mouth? Like you, the multi-millionaire, the one that's like, what? And then like, you just went really dumb. What do you mean plants have feelings? Even if plants did have feelings, I would much rather kill a kale than kill a cow. Like,
there's a difference between that argument too, that brings up a good point, because I've heard it too, is that, but you're killing a plant. It's like, actually, no, you're not killing a plant. When you kill an animal, life stops. It doesn't reproduce. It can't reproduce because it's actually dead, and it needs another counterpart to reproduce. Plants have the capabilities of, even if you take the fruit from them, you actually promote more life, because it generates another seed, it generates another root, it generates another flower, everything like that. So that argument's kind of invalid, because you're not killing anything, you're promoting more life. So I don't know, it's just something to think of. And the next time somebody tells you that, just hit them with that. Hit them with the facts.
That is really good. I can bring that up. Like every time I post something on my Facebook, I'll get some hater, right? And the other day, this guy posted, I'm going to start some revolution for the grapes because human beings took away their right to reproduce. It's like, really? Really? That's your argument? Okay.
Yeah. I've seen some pretty funny, I'm not going to lie, I mean, I have a good sense of humor. I've seen some pretty hilarious vegan memes out there. And it's like, there was one that was like, every year millions of vegetables die due to vegans and all this stuff. And I'm just like, the shit people come up with, it's great. Like, I like it. I get a kick out of it.
So what do you tell people if they mess up, or when is the last time you messed up?
That's the most difficult thing for people to realize, is that when somebody claims to be vegan, it's under the assumption that they never mess up, or they never, slip up, or just like cave into old habits or anything like that. It's the same thing as a Christian, who devotes himself to God, but sins. You know what I mean? It's the same thing. And I think that's the most important thing to realize, is that nobody's perfect. And if you mess up, just jump back on the wagon and keep on, just keep on practicing, and keep on trying to do your best, and keep on always striving to elevate yourself and your skills, and I mean your dedication to something. You know what I mean? That goes to everything in life, not just your diet. So that's why I tell people all the time, whenever people are trying to convert, I usually recommend them trying to convert to vegetarian first.
Right.
Because, like I said, it's very difficult for somebody who has a more traditional diet to cold turkey give up meat, give up fish, chicken, everything else, and just start eating plants, because it sounds terrifying to them, because it's not like, I don't even like eating like spinach, like raw spinach. I'm like, you kidding me? I gotta eat this? Like,
right.
Let's throw some flavor on it, So like, that's what the people's mindset is. So I always recommend going vegetarian first and trying it out for an extended period of time. Then once you're comfortable with being vegetarian, or even pescatarian, give up all meat, chicken, everything else, just go pescatarian for a bit, then give up that, then give up eggs, then give up milk, then give up everything else. Just do it and like set yourself up for success instead of setting yourself up for failure. Because if it's just like, I don't know, it's just common sense to do things progressively instead of, drawing a line and saying, I'm never doing something again. And people do it. Don't get me wrong. It's just the very mentally tough people that can do it, or something is driving that desire to have to stop. There could be an external source that's forcing them to stop, or some kind of, event that happens in their life. They're traumatized, and they witness a cow being slaughtered. Like, that's what happened to my mom. She witnessed a pig being slaughtered when she was 15, and the screams of the pig just terrified her, because she grew up in Argentina, where there's slaughterhouses everywhere, and they're world known for their meat, and my mom, just after her boyfriend at the time killed a pig in front of her, she said, "I'm never eating meat again." And since she was 15, that's the way it's been. So sometimes people can do it, but if you mess up, it's okay. Just jump back on the wagon and continue just striving to be your best.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Like, give up the meat first, because the meat's such a big thing. I come from a really, really small town. We are in the country. Like, we are very small, and it's all white people that are into farming and 4-H and FFA and all that. So they they definitely look at me and they're like, "You just look like that."
A lot of times when I wear a shirt or like something like this, like it says "Eat where elephants eat," it's usually a conversation starter, right?
Yeah.
Or if I have another shirt that says "Kale Yam Vegan," and people think it's a joke. People think I'm fucking with them. Like, "You're not fucking vegan," and I'm like, "No, seriously, I am." And they're like, "No, you're not." And then, you go on to the steroid comment and everything else, and then we get back to the point, and then I'm like, "No, I'm like, no, seriously, I'm vegan. It's possible. You can do it." And they were like, "I would have never guessed that you could ever do that on a plant-based diet." And I'm like, it's exactly what I'm trying to promote. Like, that's why I'm doing it, is because people don't believe it.
Well, I think one of the biggest things that we have to focus on is something that we don't focus on, which is what you're talking about, I need to, eat meat and like die of a heart attack, the man. And it's like, it's the opposite. Well, it's feminism, right? But focus on men, because Jane Fonda, who's like one of my idols and mentors, like, I just love her. In one of her commencement speeches, she talks about how, feminism will never even become a real thing until we give men their revolution of like, we don't have to be heartless, emotionless, muscle-bound dudes to be a man. Like, we can be a man being a man. Like, we don't have to be emotionally disconnected and everything. In the same sense as women don't have to stay at home and cook and clean, and we can work out, and I think once we even that out of like, okay, men can be who they want to, I think we'll start to get on the veganism thing, right? It'll just really make it happen.
No, yeah, I totally agree. Like I told you, I came from a place where it was bucks, ducks, and trucks. Like, that's to be a man. You know what I mean? Like, you would go hunting, and you would kill some deer. You would strap the deer to your truck, and you'd go kill some ducks on the way home. And if you ran over a squirrel on the way home, even better. You know what I mean? Like, up too. So I know what it's like to be like ridiculed and everything growing up, and like it made me have really tough skin. And like I said, I couldn't be like, now, like growing up and looking at like my childhood and everything, I couldn't be more thankful that my parents raised me this way, because it made me the man I am today in so many aspects of my life. And like being able to handle people, being able to handle a situation in like in a manner where it won't create an issue, and you end up leaving with like a friend, or like, you know what I mean, just like enlightening somebody with some education instead of ignorance, and like hating fire, or like fighting fire with fire. It's like you fight fire with water, and just like completely dispense of this stereotype that people are trying to, you know what I mean? It's just like, I couldn't be more thankful for my parents and the way they raised me. So
that's amazing. So what do you think is the most important thing that people need to know about veganism?
I think this is a tough one. This is a really tough one. Maybe it's, hold on, let me think about this one. This one's really good. Probably the most important thing, you can thrive on this kind of lifestyle. And whatever your reason is for choosing this kind of lifestyle, it's a good reason, and it's a very valiant reason. And just by choosing to live your life this way, you're creating a difference in the world that you can't even measure the effects of, because you're helping eliminate suffering, you're helping eliminate death, you're helping eliminate exploitation, and you're helping people when you promote it, you help people almost cleanse their soul. You know what I mean? Like we talked about. And in my opinion, that's one of the purest things you could do, because your soul is in one way or another directly connected to God. So it's like you're purifying everything in every aspect of your life. So whatever your reason is for choosing this kind of lifestyle, let it be your own. And it's a great choice. You know what I mean? So props to you if you're even considering it.
Yeah, that's a really good answer. I love that. Let's see. So what are 2 goals that you have for yourself in 2016?
Oh, okay. It's easy. So I actually like I said, I just competed in a men's physique contest last weekend, and I actually won the entire thing. But one of the whole reasons I want to compete and everything is not to become the best bodybuilder or anything like that. It's like I'm literally using this platform to promote this kind of lifestyle and using myself as an example that it can be done, and you can compete against upper echelon athletes and the best of the best in so many different levels on this kind of lifestyle. And that's the stereotype that people seem to think is impossible. You know what I mean? So one of my goals is actually 9 weeks from yesterday or Saturday. I'm competing again, but this time it's for a pro qualifier.
Okay.
So now that I won that last show and I'm nationally qualified, I can compete at the pro qualifier level. And if I just win my height class, I become a professional. So if I become a professional, then it's like, hey, I made it. You know what I mean? It's like, look, guys, I did it. Like if I can do it, like you can do it. Like it's not easy by any means. Not is it easy. You have to sacrifice a whole lot of stuff.
Right.
And you have to be dedicated and bust your ass and do all these other things, but it can be done. You know what I mean? That's one of my main goals that I've been thinking about since I started competing, is just to make it to that level and then see where it takes me from there. The next thing is, which I'm super excited about, is launching a website. So like I said, my Instagram has been taking off, and I've been getting a lot of interest from a lot of different people. And sometimes it's overwhelming trying to communicate to the people through DMs and through email. So sometimes I'll take forever to respond, but it's like, if you're watching, fans, I'm so sorry, because I work like 10 hours a day, and then I go to the gym for 2 hours, and then I come home and I try to spend as much time with my girlfriend, and then I have to meal prep, and then I have all these things going on in my life, and I still try to make as much time for everybody that has a question, like big or small, whatever. If I can answer it, I'm going to try to. So but a lot of times I get the same questions. You know, I get the same questions, and I have the same answers for people, because it's such generic questions that I feel like I need some kind of landing page for people to go to, and they can see my philosophy and see the types of like services I offer, because I do like online coaching for athletes, and just like a place where I can put like my workout videos, some like content as far as like people who are interested in becoming vegan or plant-based diets, and just kind of have it like a home base for everything. So I'm currently in the works of that right now, and I don't know how long it's going to take for that to get up and running, but that's one of my main goals for 2016. So, but I think right now, even in the fitness industry, I've been in it, and I've been kind of like knee deep in a lot of different aspects of it, and I feel like there's a movement that's starting to develop, and I feel like there's a movement that's starting to tend away from the whole like hardcore huge bodybuilders and the steroid thing, and that there's like so many negative connotations that even supplement industries are tending to go more natural. Everything that they're promoting is like all natural ingredients, no proprietary blend, so you know exactly what's in their products, and they're going for the more natural athletes and everything like that. So I feel like I'm emerging right now in a perfect time in this industry that I could really make a difference in it and be like a front runner, or help promote other front runners, and kind of like help this movement kind of get up and running. You know what I mean? So I'm really excited about it, and I think, yeah, exactly. See, we don't even know each other, and we feel the exact same way. It's like some whispering going. You know what I mean? It's like you can see it coming. Yeah. And I think some really big things are coming as far as the fitness industry go, and health and nutrition in general. And even as a lifestyle, I believe that America's just, I mean, they're down in the dumps as far as health-wise goes. There's obesity at every corner of this country, and it all starts with what we put in our body and the habits that have been created and passed down for a couple generations, and the habits of going to McDonald's and getting, triple Big Macs that have been pumped full of God knows what, and French fries that have been greased and God knows how many pounds of grease, you know what I mean, and clogging up all your arteries. So it's a movement that's eventually going to happen, and I think it's kindling right now. My grandpa actually lived till he was 93, and he was doing like bicycle races and cycle races until he was 80 something.
Wow.
And he became vegetarian for the last 30, 40 years of his life. It's amazing how much progress and how much, how sharp he was. It's incredible. So I plan on doing the exact same thing, I'm going to be that guy doing bodybuilding competitions when I'm 94. Be that guy on stage.
Love it. So this has been awesome. Can you believe it's already been an hour and a half?
That's incredible. It felt like it was 5 minutes. I'm not going to lie. Like I said, I'm an engineer and I work a lot, but my passion is this. I find it really interesting what I do, and it's great because it promotes safety and all these other things. But my real passion is helping people and health and fitness. Right. So maybe one day, who knows, I could even become some kind of icon for it, or a motivational speaker, or just some kind of educator on it to help people become aware of certain issues. So it's just a matter of time, honestly. Just a matter of time.
Okay, well, thank you so much, everyone, for watching. And as you know, we'll be back on next Tuesday. You can contact me at Dark Sunshine, DARKSUNSH9. And where can they reach you at?
Let's see. You can find me on Instagram at Nimai Delgado. You can find me on Facebook. Same thing, Nimai Delgado. If you want to email me directly, go to thehardcoreherbivore@gmail.com. And I have a YouTube channel as well. Just search Nimai Delgado. And eventually I will have this website up and running where you can access all of my social media outlets and all this information that we're going to have up there. And it's going to be really interesting. So be sure to stay involved and ask me any questions you want, and I'll be glad to answer.
Okay, guys, that's it for this week. I know you cannot get enough of that, so go ahead and go check him out on Instagram. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions about becoming vegan or you're wanting to be on this podcast, contact me on any social media. Guys, that's Dark Sunshine, DARKSUNSH 9. I can't wait to meet you.